Hey everyone, welcome back to Cosmic Alarm Clock. I am surprised I'm jumping on the mic so soon relative to when I said I would see you next. I anticipate this episode is going to drop mid-August. I'm recording it a few days before that. And I didn't think that you guys would hear from me again until the middle of November when Saturn stations forward. Obviously, it's at the degree of its station the entire month of November and beyond. It is actually at the degree of its station from late October. But something is making me jump on here, so that's what we're going to do. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cosmic Alarm Clock. A couple of quick housekeeping things to get out of the way as I go into this stream of consciousness thing. This podcast is very much go backwards to go forwards. If you understand the theme of cosmic time, there is no linear aspect to cosmic time. Cosmic time, a cosmic alarm clock, is ruled by Uranus, which is outside of the realm of what we can see without a telescope and does not adhere to our earth plane silliness. Saturn does. So during this crazy Jupiter in Gemini time, which I talked about the mundane aspects of Jupiter in Gemini, I talked about the political shit going on. That has nothing to do with Jupiter and Gemini, although it does, because Jupiter expands everything and Gemini is the news. As a business owner, I have been crazy myself and doing all the things. And I am born Mercury retrograde in Virgo, and it is currently Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So while most people will tell you to slow down and not do anything, this is my time to thrive. And I run around with scissors. I burn everything down, all of it. Is this relevant to why I'm talking to you today? It is. So what are we going to talk about on this podcast? We're going to talk about a bunch of shit. We're going to talk about what's going on with the astrology of now because it's relevant. We're going to talk about what's happening moving up till the next time you hear from me, which is mid-November. I'm going to briefly touch about some political stuff that's going on just because I talked in depth last time and it's only been about 3 weeks, although in real time, we all know that 3 weeks has been a fucking chaotic stretch of events, positive and negative, and so much more. And I'm just going to get into it. And the reason I'm feeling a little bit hesitant is I shared the podcast with a few folks. And if you guys are listening, welcome. And I kind of got the feedback, well, you should kind of just get to the meat of the content. And, you don't have to give receipts and all that. And the thing is I have a new podcast. It is called The Aligned Alchemist. It is on entrepreneurship for sacral beings. It is on all the players. It will eventually be on my YouTube channel, Success and Spirit. And that is a very, very strategic podcast. It is buttoned up. The podcasts are edited with fancy editing software and fancy microphones. And I've got a show flow plan and I've got SEO and I've got show notes strategy and I've got offers I sell and blah, 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 blah. And there's an avatar and all the things. I am selling something on that podcast. And so it is important for me to grow that podcast. That is not to say that Cosmic Alarm Clock is not important to me, but right now I need a vehicle where I just talk and share what I want to share. I am all collective circuitry, primarily collective circuitry in human design, if you understand that at all. And I have an undefined throat, which means what I do is I just channel collective energies and I talk. And I trust that whoever is meant to hear it is going to hear it. And so I was going to come on here and give a big hullabaloo, that's not the right word, about how this would be the first video on the new platform, I'll explain, and the last video on the old platform, I'll explain. And in this true going backwards to go forwards, what you guys need to know is that this podcast started roughly after the node switched into North Node being in Taurus, South Node being in Scorpio. This was January of 2022. This was during the 111 portal. We're still in the 8-8 portal, if you believe in numerology. By the way, Lionsgate is not an astrological phenomenon. There is no basis in anything really other than pop culture, but it's fun. And you should know that this brand started on 8-8-2021. Success and Spirit started. So I guess Cosmic Alarm Clock is part of that brand. And that was because I had a full moon occur at a critical point in my chart, and full moons are luminaries and triggers. It's not obvious. I don't normally talk personalized astrology on this podcast. It's all important. All relative to what I'm going to tell you. So Uranus was coming above the horizon. And so I started a blog. That's not the right word. It was a personal Instagram account called my.spiritual.musings. And I would just post like a tarot card here and there. I would post like some spiritual art I was doing, some astrological stuff. And it was my first foray actually into public anything. I'd never been on social media before. I had run prior businesses, but I had purposely chosen businesses where I was behind the scenes. And I'm not a big social media person in my personal life. And I'm also Gen X, so it just was a different time. You know, like I said in a prior episodes, posting shit on your Facebook page of your trip, image crafting, that's not, you know, it was a handful of high school friends and some relatives that were seeing it. It was not like it is now. And so I had a private Instagram account and I created this thing. And what I realized is the reason that was created is it became the vehicle through which I started channeling during the 111 portal. I started channeling Kali. You guys know that that's how this brand started. Some of you guys may know that that's how this brand started. By the way, for those of you listening to this on the new channel, Cosmic Alarm Clock, YouTube has a new channel. Welcome. I'm just realizing a lot of you guys might be hearing me for the first time. I swear, I talk off the cuff. This is not a politically correct show. I don't know what it is. Welcome. And so then it became Cosmic Alarm Clock, yada, yada. So then a couple of weeks ago, I felt this need to create a YouTube channel called Cosmic Alarm Clock. And earlier this summer, I had a sacral surge in the middle of the night, and I decided to take the YouTube handle Cosmic Alarm Clock Podcast. And then a few weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm changing it to Cosmic Alarm Clock. I don't know why. I don't need to know why. And I recorded 3 episodes. I spent 3 hours recording shit at the Leo new moon. Talking about the Leo new moon, talking about Lionsgate, talking about Mercury retrograde, talking about what's happening politically, and I didn't post any of it. And why did I not post any of it? It's because I do not have the time for this right now. And that's why even if you go to the description, it says new videos coming November of 2024. I don't know why I'm saying that. I mean, I know Saturn's going direct and Pluto's entering Aquarius and we're entering a new paradigm. So yes, I do know why I'm saying that, but I don't know why I'm saying that. And I don't know why I'm creating another channel because, you know, I've talked about Uranus going into Gemini next summer, Neptune going to Aries next spring. Pluto will go fully into Aquarius at the end of November. And I've already started talking about it. The node switch in January, which frankly is something I could do on my business channel because it does relate to business, although I could do it here. And you get it. There's not so much. I mean, once the outer planets switch signs, they only switch signs like after every 7 or 8 years. I've talked about how fucking epic it is. They're all changing signs. And I didn't even realize this last time I talked to you guys. As I was saying, Saturn goes into Aries in 2026. No, it actually goes into Aries next year. It dips back and it goes back. I did not realize that. So we have, Saturn, again, not being an outer planet, but Saturn representing the boundaries of Earth time reality, Saturn representing Capricorn, which are the structures that be. Of course, Saturn is going to come into play on a podcast talking about collective energies. Okay. And the paradigm and the new paradigm and the breaking of the old paradigm and the dissolving of the structures that are not working, yada, yada. So everything's changing fucking signs. And, Neptune is, Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. Saturn in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. This is big. Aries, 2 major planets going to Aries. We are in a fresh start in a powerful, powerful way. Aquarius is a fixed sign, and Aquarius is an air sign, not an element and a modality that you would typically associate with change. But we all know Aquarius is the new paradigm. So all that's to say is that's what I was going to do. And I'm going to drop this podcast probably the weekend right before the full moon, which is on the 19th this year, 19th of August. And it works out really well because not always when we have a Leo new moon, we have an Aquarius full moon. Those are the polar signs, but as you know, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. And that's because I'm going to direct you guys to an episode called Heart versus Hive. It is one of the few episodes I've kept up on the podcast, and I'll probably clear all the episodes off of the podcast except for that one. And I did one on Pluto entering Aquarius like 2 years ago or something, talking about what's to come. Just because we're starting, in some ways, Mercury retrograde is going backwards to go forwards. I mean, all retrogrades are that, but this entire fucking brand has been go backwards to go forwards. If you've been listening to the way that I communicate the astrology of now. But Mercury is also cleaning up the mess, and Mercury in Virgo is really fresh slate energy. And so I have to review a lot of them. I keep a lot of my old stuff, but as you know, this podcast was recorded in the middle of the night. Half of it wasn't on a microphone, blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually upgrading my entire studio in preparation for the full launch of my real podcast. I am upgrading everything. And so it feels very, very fitting that I felt the need to record this podcast. Like, by the way, the microphone I'm recording this on is a very nice microphone, and I have sound panels and I have a very nice setup, but I'm recording this on QuickTime, which is a free app. And I'm purposely doing that because I can't be using all my free tools. I've been using my AI and my this and my that to do this podcast. And that's not what this podcast is. And I can't do that right now. And so the reason I'm sharing that is because what happens is then those 3 hours of content just sit on my computer until I have time to edit it and put it through Descript and put it through AI tools and do all the fancy captions and all that for the algorithm. That ain't it. That's not what this is going to be. So that's all I wanted to say, is that listen to that episode. It's very telling. I did that in August, I believe, of August of 2022. And the whole notion of the heart versus hive, and I know the people listening to this are not necessarily business owners. That is the audience for my new podcast. But I think many of you guys might be creators, potentially. And you are definitely free spirits if you're listening to this podcast. And so something to be aware of is, and I talk about it in that podcast, and I'm not going to go in depth into it, but it's something to be aware of is, as we're really fully moving into Pluto and Aquarius, is this notion of tech dystopia. And we have swung on the spectrum. If you think about, just to keep going with this analogy or this story of, if you're thinking about a producer and they're, editing a piece of music or they're editing a podcast and they're sliding that thing up and down. I don't know what that thing's called, right? To get the right tone. There's that spectrum. And I feel like we have swung a little bit when it comes to producing content for folks. Leo is you produce content for people. Now, I am well aware that I could talk on this microphone and drop this piece of content out there and no one's going to hear it. That's Leo. And Aquarius is the hive, the tribe, people hearing it, people sharing it, people reviewing it. By the way, if you want this to stick around on Spotify and Apple, reviewing it is the best way to let me know that that's worth it. Because just so you know, I got 200 views on this. Last time I dropped this on YouTube, I got like 3 listens on Spotify and Apple. So you can understand why the ROI is not there for me. I'm keeping it up here on Spotify for a reason, but I originally was going to take it down. But here's why I'm going to keep it up. I like the placeholder of having it up here. I like the notion if people want to find it, they can find it. And the bottom line is what I was trying to share with when I was trying to share about, that it was an Instagram account and then it became a this and then it became a podcast and now it's become a full-blown business, but the business is now its own channel and its own thing. And now the podcast is called The Aligned Alchemist. Who the fuck knows what that's going to be and blah, blah, blah. And there are going to be offers and then there's going to be group programs and I don't even know. I am a little bit co-creating this, if it's not obvious. That's what channeling is. That's what divine spiritual business is done right. So I'm allowing the essence to decide the form when it wants to decide the form. So I am trusting that the Cosmic Alarm Clock wants to be its own channel because there's going to be additional material on there. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know what an extra set of arms I'm going to hire to help me manage that, but it might be, I have people talking about different energies, different things. It's meant to be a weird fucking channel. It's meant to be a channel for weirdos. I need a channel where it has nothing to do with my business. It has nothing to do with my algorithm. It's for everybody. It's a collective channel. And so it's going to be determined by the collective who either listens to that or watches that channel or not. So you guys on YouTube, you liking this and you commenting on this video is going to help propagate this video along and help propagate this channel along. So the thing about videos on YouTube is that they should have video to really take off. And at the very least, you want to have like captions and all that where the words are going across the screen. I'm just not doing that right now. And so what having this on the podcast player allows me to do, it allows me to do 2 things. One, it allows me, for you guys who prefer to listen to it on a podcast, you can still do that. But 2, YouTube has RSS feeds now. So I can literally talk, post this to a podcast, and it boom goes to YouTube. However, that means there's no fancy editing or editing at all. And it means that there's no visuals. So I don't know how much people are going to be into that, but if this is a vibration and this wants to come through me, we will trust it. And I love the idea that since I felt the need to create that podcast and I even felt the need to put like a header image up there and whatever, and take away the word podcast, makes me think there's going to be more than that. And then there'll be a playlist on there called Cosmic Alarm Clock Podcast that will pull from this podcast. and it's going to be more than collective astrology. I don't know what it's going to be. Or it could die once Uranus goes into Gemini, and that'll be that. That's all she wrote. I have a Uranus transit that started by coincidence right when Uranus went into Taurus in March of 2018, because my life is fun. It's been 7 years and it will end in April of 2026. So maybe I'll go back to a pumpkin and become a normal member of society again, but we don't know. Okay. So that's backwards to go forwards. But I guess for people who are out there who are creators, 2 messages for you. Number 1 is that just let the essence determine the form, and the form is going to evolve and pivot, and it doesn't have to make sense. The new podcast called The Aligned Alchemist makes no sense, because I should call it the Human Design Podcast, because nobody knows what the fuck The Aligned Alchemist is. And my intuition is telling me no. And it's for sacral business owners. So it's for people who are manifesting generators and generators. That's not to say that other people aren't welcome. I love me, my manifestors, but it's just, we operate differently. And one of the things is that our sacral, when it actually is listened to, has no brain. And it really just does whatever the fuck it wants to do. And that's not to say it always is going to make us money and be productive and be a good use of time and energy. But I've been a little bit on a we're going to let the sacral do what it wants to do kind of a thing. I'm in that mode right now. So Sacral created this channel. Don't know what it's going to be. Welcome you if you're interested, all the things. If you're new, normally I just get into the content and I just talk straight astrology. This is a little bit of an unusual where I'm just digging into it. I'm assuming I've lost half the people already. And if I have, and you're like, ooh, get to the meat, blah, blah, blah. First of all, 2 things. Number 1, this is what it is. Number 2, I know that some of the people listening to this are actually people who have their own astrology businesses and or their own paid groups and Patreons and stuff. The last thing I'm going to do is package this up for you to give it to other people. So if you're going to take what I'm going to say and package it up and give it to other people, at the very least, I'm going to make you sit through a bunch of shit before I do that. Sorry. Kali did start this brand, by the way. So let's just remember who is behind the show here, and let's just respect that energy. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to say is that if you are a creator, that heart versus hive paradigm, and I'm going to put that episode up here. I don't have the time to do all this, put the old episodes up, but I'm going to put it up on the new channel just because I don't want to be directing people to the other channel. It's really messing up my algorithm for my business. And there is strategy involved in spirit. That's what Success in Spirit, the name of the channel, is about. It's strategy and spirit. There's nothing wrong with that. But obviously, if you're interested in any of the older episodes, they're going to be up there. They're all edited. Most of them are very, very curated because I cut out a lot of fluff. But it's just something to be aware of, is that in that spectrum of heart versus hive, are you to the point where you are editing your creativity for the hive? Editing this for the hive would be me making sure the show notes are fucking perfect, the SEO, blah, blah. If you don't have a podcast, it's a whole fucking business. It's a whole thing. It is a whole goddamn thing. I have built artifact models in AI just for my other podcast, just for show notes and titles and all that SEO. And it is a whole fucking thing. And then it's a 24/7 to market it. I'm not going to do that with this podcast. So the only reason this podcast is up here right now is that for the random person who wants to find it, and it's a way for me to directly shoot it to YouTube. So at some point it may go away if I find that I'm just going to be live streaming on YouTube in the future. But for now, we're here. So that's where we're at. And if you're a creator, just think about that. Think about where you are overly editing yourself and overly worrying about what the hive wants at the risk of your creativity. And for now, this has to be a creative project that stays a creative project. I will be selling my astrology readings. This is a business. I am a businesswoman. If that offends you, if you're one of these fucking assholes on podcast groups who complain when people have ads on their podcast and want everything for fucking free, you can go away, because I hate people like that. And I never use that word. They're takers. If you saw Kali's original channeling, by the way, which was not me, she was like, I hate looky. She's like, don't be a fucking looky-loo, like stuff, share shit. She was like, nobody, I have Pluto and Libra. Nobody loves a taker. So listen to it, enjoy it, share it, like it. If you don't like it, shut the fuck up. I mean, go listen to another astrology podcast. I don't know what to tell you. And there's that. So I don't know what my point of that was, but I guess the point is that my astrology readings will be coming back. I do one kind of a reading. It's a cosmic clarity reading. It's a laser focused, what you need to know intuitive reading meets your transits of now meets your soul, evolving soul path of now. It is laser precision. And I do these recorded, and it keeps these at a price point that anyone can get. Price point, that's a relative term. So they're not $5, but they're something I enjoy doing. And I enjoy the fact that it's something that anybody can get. And I enjoy the fact that it is not just for business owners. It is not just for people who are astrology experts. It's for anybody. And if you're interested in that, you can email me directly, sunita@successandspirit.com, SUNITA and successandspirit.com. And then I will have a direct sales page up for that on all future content for this, because it's going to be completely separate. It's at a completely different vehicle. It's just a completely very different thing than I do with my other clients. And it just would be confusing to try to put those up on. And I don't even have a website for Success and Spirit yet, because again, I'm letting the essence drive the form, something that we are not told to do in business. And we're in the new paradigm of business, and we can do whatever the fuck we want. So going back to the astrology of now, if you're still listening, welcome. We've returned to a regularly scheduled programming of the astrology. And I am recording this on August 13th, and it will drop probably on August this weekend. I got to get YouTube to verify me so that I can get an RSS feed approved, because this is a new channel. I actually want to thank a person. She's a very, very loyal person who always comments on my videos. And she actually commented on a post that I did where I said, hey guys, I dropped a mini report. I did it on Success and Spirit, because I do mini astrological reports on the community tab. If you don't know, I do little like mini newsletters. And I wanted to let the people in Success and Spirit know that I'm no longer going to be doing astrological anything on there that's not evergreen, and come over to Cosmic Alarm Clock to see it. And she said, oh, I didn't see the video. And then I was like, oh, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing videos for like weekly reports. Like that ain't happening. This is going to be a very infrequent, I don't even know. I might just do one for Pluto and Aquarius, and I might see you guys in 2025. That's kind of how the energy of this goes. But I want to thank her, because as a result of that, I thought, oh, I really should get a video up here. Because if you look at that community post, it's like, it's a whole fucking email. I mean, it's too much. It's too much information to be putting into a, oh, by the way, Kali's in the building, because whenever Kali shows up, fire truck goes by. And it's always kept into these podcasts because I don't edit. So thanks to this person, because as a result of that, I looked into it and I was like, oh, I could just RSS it from the podcast. And so this video will go up there. It's just going to be a static image, but then I figure you guys either have YouTube Red, which means you can listen to it anytime, or you can just listen to it when you're doing housework or whatever the fuck. Not my problem. Useful to you, listen, not. So, and for you guys who are listening on Spotify, for now, that's what the stuff on YouTube will be. But you have to understand, YouTube has discoverability. People can find this on YouTube without any work from my part. That's not going to happen on a podcast. And this is literally going to be a part-time, like a thing. It's going to be a thing. It's going to be a way for me to share things that I feel like are useful for you to know. Sometimes personal stuff, like I just shared about the whole form essence thing. Sometimes in things about how there might be people who need to hear this out here who are editing their creative projects, either out of fear of what their peers are going to think, or trying to focus too much on what other people will like versus themselves. Remember, the South Node is in Libra and the North Node is in Aries right now. So even though I have a South Node in Libra, I have a North Node in Libra and a South Node in Aries, I'm the first person to tell you to fuck off and I do whatever I want. Most people are the opposite. And as a collective, that's where the energies are right now. So as a collective, there might be this desire to over collaborate, over worry about what other people are going to think, over focus on other people's needs versus what makes sense for you. So that's something to be aware of. And I brought up the fact that my first episode of this was the Taurus Scorpio polarity. Well, because those are Venus Mars. So the current thing we're in is Mars Venus, right? Aries is ruled by Mars. So those are the only two signs. So when we're done with that, we're done with that. We've had a lot of gender shit in, I'm not politically correct. I'm not going to go into it. I'm Gen X. So I'm like this old, like whatever. I don't get half of this shit, but the pronouns and all this stuff, that has been a thing. And the Olympics this year was very strict on its rules and people were for that. And I think a lot of this is going to die down post-January because we're going to go into nodes that have nothing to do with any of that. And that's relative to what I want to say. So let's get into the astrology. So what's happening right now is we are having a bunch of things going on. And because I've already talked for a while, I'm actually going to, what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull up the newsletter / thing I wrote on the community tab and actually use it as a guide because there's so much to say. So what's happening right now? We are getting ready for this Jupiter-Saturn first quarter square at 17 degrees of Gemini Pisces. This is going to be exact this upcoming weekend. However, Saturn is already at 17 degrees. So we're in the energy of this. And I want to remind you guys that Jupiter and Saturn conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius on winter solstice of 2020, the great Christmas star in the sky. And that was a big fucking deal. Jupiter and Saturn conjunct together every 20 years. It could have conjunct at any degree of the zodiac, and it chose to conjunct at 0 degrees of Aquarius. We're at the first quarter square of that. Think of it as the first quarter moon. The light starts to build. How are we doing? So the conjunction happened in a fixed signs, Aquarius. And now we're in the mutable signs. We're in Gemini and Pisces. There's room. As you know, with a first quarter moon, if you look up in the sky, we just had one for this moon cycle, there is just starting to be more light than dark. You can kind of still manipulate the form to be what you want if things are not going your way. It's a little bit too late to seed plant, but you can manipulate things to go your way. Now, I'm going to talk about this from a collective perspective because that's what Cosmic Alarm Clock is about. And because a lot of people do whole signs, I don't believe in whole signs, nor do I recommend them. But if you do whole signs, if you're into whole signs, then this upcoming full moon in Aquarius and this, which happens to be a Monday, by the way. So, of course, astrology wants to be fucking dramatic. August is the definition of go backwards to go forwards in astrology, in collective energies and in your life. And that is why this podcast wanted to come out. Even though I have so much going on, I'm barely sleeping, it had to come out. And so there's that. I don't believe in that. 0 degrees of Aquarius could be very different than wherever this full moon is. I don't actually know the exact degree of this Aquarius full moon. Usually I'm more dialed into this, but I don't even know what it is. Could be the same degree of your chart. Could not be. For me, it's not, for example. But it's a full moon. It is a light flash light. It is a halo on how are things going so far since that conjunction. Now, from a societal perspective, we all know that 2020 was fucking batshit. And 20 changed the paradigm of the world, good and bad. And for many people, as you know, the age of Aquarius is an ever evolving thing. You know what's really funny is I always decide to record these fucking podcasts around 5 p.m. And that is the loudest period of time around where I live because I live on my office is in the intersection that's extremely busy and there's trucks and whatever. Fuck it. All right, let's dial it in. So the age of Aquarius has been coming for a while. And that's why I've talked about it on my channel for a while, my podcast. Fuck, I don't even know what to call it. I've been talking about it on this thing for a while. And that's why I want to put up that old episode. Because a lot of what I said 2 years ago is very, very, very telling. And people who have been listening to me know that I've been on time every time. Cosmic Alarm Clock, my friends, as she wrote. But the point is that it's been coming for a long time. And so for many people, many astrologers, myself included, felt that was very, very significant, that point. That conjunction was really like, all right, you guys, it's on like Donkey Kong, right? We had this crazy fucking year that changed society. Winter solstice is kind of the time where everyone fucking collapses for the year. The US goes into the holidays. A lot of Western countries go into the holidays. And it's a time to just like, all right, we did it. We made it, right? And I happened to live in a place where it was visible and I was up at 4:00 in the morning. I remember looking at it. It was really, really powerful to see. It was crazy fucking bright. I remember that. And it really did look like a Christmas star. And if you read the description of this podcast, which I got to update at some point, but it says it is the events of 2020 through 2027. I have no idea why I said those years. I think it's because I think life is going to be crazy through 2026 because Saturn's going to go back and forth, Pisces, Aries, which means it's going back and forth of the last degrees of the zodiac. Neptune's doing the same thing, and Uranus is going back and forth. So Uranus doesn't fully enter Gemini until May or March of 2026. I have to check when Saturn fully enters Aries. I think it's spring of 2026. And I think Neptune fully enters Aries in spring of 2026. And I don't really know when the, quote, cross of the rising phoenix is coming in human design exactly, but I would wage that 2024 through 2026 is the prep time. And then 2027 it's on. Because if you don't know, the human design new year is January 22nd. So There is no one switch into the cross of the rising phoenix. There is no one switch into the age of Aquarius, but it's coming. And I think Uranus going into Gemini is a big piece of it. I really do, because I think Gemini being our mind and information and technology, all of the stuff that I shared last time, and we've only had a preview so far of Jupiter and Gemini, what it's going to look like. We've got so much more to go. It's in there through, I believe, May of 2025. I think things are just going to speed the fuck up. I mean, Uranus is electricity and Gemini is mutable air. I mean, come on, you guys. The last 7-8 years, I just got chills, by the way. The last 7-8 years, it's been in fixed earth. So one could argue, oh, well, you know, fire is even faster. I would think mutable air is about as opposite from fixed earth as it gets. And usually astrology tends to do that on purpose. So that's something to be aware of. And so this podcast didn't start until 2022. So why did I say 2020 to 2022? Well, this is actually a really great episode to seed the new channel, because a lot of people aren't going to listen to the old stuff. Although I would say 2 episodes I'm surprised didn't get more love are, I have episodes called Dark Side of the Dark Web. And that is with an AI insider interview. Maybe people don't like interviews. They just want to be like, tell me what I need to know. But those are really fascinating conversations about tech dystopia and what was going to, she predicted what was going to happen with jobs, which is exact. She's a very, very senior person in a very senior place doing dark things beyond what I even understand. And another person who is a Harvard trained psychiatrist, who's also an astrologer. I find the good people on this, by the way. I tend to know the cool people. And she was talking about mental health in the age of Aquarius. And those are 2 episodes up on the old channel that I would highly recommend you listen to. But at any rate, just to summarize kind of where we've been, is in 2020, we had the great Jupiter-Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January, the big destruction point, the point that I believe was all the, astrologers talked about how important that was, and how this was going to signal whatever. And then everyone's like, oh, astrologers didn't tell us anything was going to happen. And yeah, we did. I didn't. I was an astrologer at that time, but yeah, everybody else did. And then we had the conjunction, right? So Pluto plows. So Pluto, it was not actually conjunct by degree. Very, very close enough. And I think there's a famous astrologer on YouTube. His name is the Leo King. I'm not a huge fan of him, but a lot of people really like him. And I think he called it Shattering of Reality or something. There was some big webinar he did that was popular where he talked about you had since the dark ages and what a big deal it was. And then we had the pandemic. So that happened. I don't know if I should, I'm not editing this. I shouldn't probably said that we had it's probably fine. I didn't say the C word. But at any rate, I try not to say names or anything on this because, obviously this is not a channel that YouTube wants anyone to see. So especially if I start having more weirdos coming on here talking about the Schumann resonance. By weirdos, I mean amazing Aquarian, Uranians talking about the Schumann resonance and aliens and other things that I think would be interesting, and energy and alternative energies. But we'll see. This is a creative project. We'll see. So it'll be, depend if people want it too. It depends if anyone's listening to this new channel. So, what I wanted to say. This is what happens when Earth Brain. You could see Sunitha stepped in there. She started doing her planning, and the channeling fell off. What did I say? What was I saying? 2020. So that's what happened. Okay, and then 2021 we had the Uranus Saturn square, the big headline of 2021, and I did an entire episode on that called I think the past meets the future or something like that. And that's on my main channel. And I did that in 2022 because that's when the podcast started. And they did get close enough in October of 2022 to be considered a conjunction, but they conjunct 3 times. And that's another thing where you have a first quarter square conjunction, you conjunction, a first quarter square, a last quarter square, and then you have a conjunction again. Well, that 2021 was the last quarter square. And so we're in the last 11 years of that. Go back to 2021 and add 11 years. And that's when they're going to meet again. They have a longer period. There's a 44 years. Jupiter and Saturn meet every 20 years. So every time you have a seed planting, it's a conjunction, just like the new moon is a seed planting between the sun and the moon. And so Saturn being the past and control structures, and Uranus being, the earthquake, that is a bigger impact on society. And go listen to that episode. I talked about the global events that happened, Tiananmen Square and around Contra and blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of crazy shit that happened, and that all had to do with those all timed with those events. So now we've sped us up to 2022. I sped you up to 2022, where I talked about how cosmic alarm clock started, and now we're back to 2024. But before we go to 2024, we're going to go back to 2023. And why is that? Because making this Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn in Gemini conjunction even more of a big deal is the fact that Mars is going to come along and conjunct as well. It wants to get on the party. And as you know, Mars isn't a luminary. It is a trigger. So at the beginning of the episode, I talked about how that full moon triggered that thing. Well, there's two things that are going to trigger a transit in your chart. A full moon, an eclipse, which is also a full moon, but more powerful, and Mars. These are considered trigger planets. They will speed up the process. And so Mars coming along is a big fucking deal. Now, a couple of things to be aware of with this. I got to say it. I know we're not talking personalized astrology, but I got to say it. Mercury retrograde. I'm born with Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So yes, I should run around with scissors and burn it all down and start second YouTube channels and change the branding. By the way, I felt the need on Threads today. I don't know if this is going to stick, but I felt the need on Threads on my main description of like who am I changed the name from Spirit Guide to Earth Witch. So that feels like a big deal. I don't know why. It's because I like to talk about herbs. I run around with crystals in my hand and ground outside. I microdose mushrooms. I literally, if you saw my office at some point, if I ever do a live stream from here, it is covered in plants, in candles and crystals. And it's like, that's who I am. So whatever. So there's this like unearthing. Everyone is on Threads is talking about they want to change their branding, and everyone else is like, no, wait, it's Mercury retrograde. And I would probably agree with that, but it is a very creative time. It is a new moon in Leo. And if you're born with Mercury retrograde, remember, Mercury retrogrades for 3 weeks of the year, 3 times. So there's a large percentage of you that are born with Mercury retrograde, and you thrive in that era. And you know who said that? Jan Spiller said that. And if you know Jan Spiller, she's the old fucking G of astrology. I only read old astrology books because these are the people who knew. She wrote the book New Moon Astrology. I'm not even going to put an affiliate link below it. I'm just going to tell it to you. New Moon Astrology. If you guys do New Moon Intentions, if you guys work with the moon at all, get that fucking book. And some of our other books are gold. I don't even read other astrology books. Jan Spiller is it. Anyway, so Jan Spiller is the one who said that, so I believe it. So I go crazy during this time, and that's why it's appropriate for me to be starting a YouTube channel, announcing it here, but also keeping this podcast, but launching all my offers for my new business and officially launching the Aligned Alchemist. It's fucking batshit. It makes no sense. But there it is. So that's happening. So Mars in Gemini, remember Gemini is sales messaging marketing, Jupiter in sales messaging marketing. And if you're a business owner and you want to know how this is affecting you as a business owner, you're going to want to see my video I did on Success and Spirit. It's 8 things that you need to know as a business owner with Jupiter and Gemini. I'm surprised more people didn't watch that video. There was only like 80 views on that video. I'm like, that's really stupid. I'm like, I guess there's just not a good intersection of business and astrology on YouTube, which is lame, because people should be using it more practically. People are using it for sun sign shit and dumb fucking stuff. The reason, by the way, I stopped doing those recorded readings is because I didn't have a good enough form where I was filtering people, and people would ask stuff like, am I going to get married? Where should I move? Should I start a business? That's not fucking astrology. Okay. Astrology is your evolving soul path. It's not a crystal ball. So I think that's what people are looking for astrology on YouTube to be affirmations. And that's not what it is. It's fucking, it's goddamn math. From a former math engineer, I'll tell you, it's fucking math. And it's just a timeline of your evolving soul self and a way for you to work with it. Think of it as like, if you're going to run with scissors, run downhill, because that's what makes it fun. So Mars is getting on the action. Here's what I want you guys to know. Mars went retrograde in Gemini in the fall of 2022. So remember I said we're going backwards, of course. We're going, yeah. We're going now. We launched the podcast, okay, spring 2022. Now we're going back. Now we're going to we're going to fall 2022. September 3rd, March hit shadow. Now I feel this strongly because I'm Mars ruled, and I was not born with Mars retrograde, and Mars is my life force. I'm a sacral being. And so Mars retrograde drops me on my ass. So Mars will be in Cancer for like 6 fucking months later. Okay. Mars, just so you guys are preparing, Mars hits its degree of station, which will be 6 degrees of Leo. Okay. Remember that. December 2nd. It retrogrades December 6th. Obviously I'll talk about it in the future, but that is a personal planet. It does not affect collective energies as much. So I may not. And I think it leaves retrograde in February, and I think it leaves shadow in like fucking March or April. I mean, it's crazy. So just be prepared for that. I'm already like planning to batch so much stuff for my podcast because I'm like, I might just turn into a pumpkin. It's already December and January are already the worst times to try to do anything anyway, right? So you guys want to think about that because we're going back to that time. This is a throwback. Remember I talked to you about the nodes? So last year, now we went from 2022, now we're going to fucking speed up. We're going to go to fall of 2023. Venus went retrograde in Leo. Venus just left Leo. And that is why I wanted to record this podcast when I did. And that's why I recorded it when I did, because at the time of the Leo new moon, and that's why I want to do away with any editing because I want these to get up and just get up. Once I get approved for an RSS feed, I can just drop them. I'm assuming I'll get approved and I can drop this in a day or two. That was the Leo new moon. It was also the official birth date of Success and Spirit. So I wanted to do like a birthday thing because I believe it birthed on the new moon, not on Lionsgate. It just happened to be a new moon in Leo on Lionsgate in 2021. And so Venus at that time was in Leo. So we had Mars in Gemini at that time. Let's pretend we're going in a time machine going back 2 weeks. We had Mars in Gemini and we had Venus in Leo. These are a throwback to when Venus was in Leo 2023 and Mars was in retrograde in Gemini in 2022. Okay. These are rare things. Mars only goes retrograde every 2 years. Venus only goes retrograde every 1.5 years. And remember, Venus forms a 5-petal flower in the sky every 8 years. That's why she's associated with 13. That's why 13 is associated with a goddess. And that is why 13 is unlucky. I did a podcast episode on that on my YouTube channel, my other YouTube channel. And this new moon was at 13 degrees of Leo, by the way. Very much Venus giving us a little wink. Right as she, in late July, became an evening star and was visible again, returned as the lover, right? So in April, I think of this year, March of this year, I believe it was March, Mars and Venus conjunct at 6 degrees of Aries. And going backwards to go forwards, in March of 2022, they conjunct at 0 degrees of Aries. Sorry, this fucking motorcycle behind me is irritating me. I hate people who just do that. They're so annoying. They're such small dick energy. 0 degrees of Aquarius, February 2022, 6 degrees of Aquarius, spring of 2024. I actually did a astrology video on my YouTube channel talking about it. It's a big deal because Mars and Venus don't conjunct every year. The next time they're going to conjunct is 2026 in Capricorn. So they conjunct in 2022 at 0 degrees of Aquarius. They can conjunct anywhere. And they conjunct again. That same goddamn point. That seed planting, cosmic lover seed planting. And then they conjunct again this year. So this is a dance between the two of them. If it's not obvious with you, this nodes being in signs ruled by Mars, Venus, Venus, Mars, and then you've got these conjunction points, and then you've got these dance of these retrogrades, right? Where Mars was in Gemini retrograde, and then Venus, right? Venus went into retrograde right like the day that Mars. So Venus went into retrograde. I think that was September 3rd of 2023. It was a throwback. It was a wink to when Mars went into shadow if it's retrograde the year before, same day. And so we're in this dance, we're in this interesting cosmic dance of them in your life, in your personal life, in the collective energies of masculine, feminine. We see that playing out on the political stage. We see that playing out in the pronoun stuff that's started to die down because bigger stuff has taken over. And we've seen that playing out with, women's sports and the shit going on there. And fortunately, I think we're winning that war. I'm on a particular side. I'm not going to say, but I'm sure you could figure it out, which I'm on. And so I think that's going to go away, hopefully. So that's what's happening. At a collective level, we're at a first quarter point. How are we doing? Now, given the events of the last couple of weeks, I think we're doing pretty good. Obviously, it would have been amazing if we'd had a VP that was a gay man candidate, but that would have been a little bit of a stone too much to stretch, I think. I don't even know, is that a saying? I just made up my own damn saying. Stone too much to stretch doesn't even make any sense. Not that most sayings make sense anyway. But we've got this old white man who's the kind of guy that you would think would run for president, football coach, blah, 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 blah. And he's like supporting this like black, half brown female running for president. Again, this is not a political statement. This is just a commentary on how fast the age of Aquarius is upon us. And this makes so much goddamn sense when you think about the fact the age of Aquarius is basically upon us right after the election. And that's why in my prior episodes, I was like, even before they announced it, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Something crazy is going to happen. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is so not age of Aquarius. No matter who won, it wasn't age of Aquarius. I thought the other guy would win and he'd keel over and die. And then the other person, and I thought it was a, like a, what is it called? Was Helen of Troy, not Helen of Troy. What was that book we read? You know, the horse, Trojan horse. That's what I thought they were going to do. And this whole thing could have been a Trojan horse. The whole thing could have been orchestrated from the beginning. I wouldn't be shocked, and I don't care. But like I said, I think all of this is fake. But whatever it is, it's an interesting social commentary, right? And I think, you know, what is it? It's like if U.S. women were an Olympic team, they would be like the most decorated. Like women like took over the whole fucking games, right? And so it's a shift. If you just see like the fact that breakdancing was a fucking sport, whether or not you agree with it or not, it's a shift. And so we're entering a very interesting time we're bridging generations. You know, Kamala Harris was on fucking TikTok. I'm not even on TikTok, and like, whatever. It's interesting. This is just commentary. And so since the last time that I talked to you guys, we had those crazy Zoom calls. Is there anything more Pluto and Aquarius than people raising money on Zoom? And we had like black men for Zoom, black gay men for Zoom, for Kamala, white women, and it broke records and broke fundraising overnight and blah, blah, blah. And there's this whole goddamn surge. And, you know, like I said, I'm undefined throat. So sometimes I'll just say stuff and it's not actually me speaking. And I was on Threads when, you know, I literally announced on the Friday before the announcement. It was the Friday before Joe Biden announced. I was like, I need to take a break from social media. And of course, that whole hell break loose. And I was like, I can't. Then that's what I had to fucking drop the podcast. And, you know, I had to get back on Threads because everyone was yammering and whatever. And I made a comment like, it feels like we're breathing fresh air. And like so many people liked this comment. And it wasn't that I said something that like, wow, it's that I think that's what people who are my age are feeling. Like, it just feels like a different energy. And that's what Aquarius is. Aquarius is fucking air. We are literally breathing new air. But let me tell you guys something. On September 1st, Pluto will re-enter Capricorn. And Saturn is going to start slowing down. Saturn is going to hit the degree of its station at 12 degrees of Pisces, like late October. And, you know, I don't really feel this Mercury retrograde energy, but some of you guys are, and that doesn't leave shadow till the 12th. So we've got a kind of a small window here. And so it's like, there's a lot of momentum right now. There's a lot of kumbaya energy, and that's really cool. And I'm just kind of just commenting on it from a perspective of, wow, so much has changed so quickly. And I think that's what Aquarius is. I think Aquarius is fixed air. We forget that Capricorn is an earth sign, so things are going to be slower in Capricorn. And so, you know, with Saturn in a mutable sign, which is a water sign, which is a dissolve sign, and then Pluto entering an earth, like an air sign, I think this is going to be fucking incredible. I'm very interested to see. And Saturn, by the way, will be direct and moving forward. Yes, slowly, but it stations on the 15th. And so it is very much moving forward when Pluto enters Aquarius around Thanksgiving. So that's what's happening. I talked about Venus retrograde. I talked about Mars retrograde. Let me look at my little cheat sheet that I talked about. Christmas star in the sky. I talked about the conjunction. Yeah. So that's what I got to say. Remember that Mars in Gemini is cutting with words. And so if you are not born with Mercury retrograde, that's what I wanted to say. You might just want to be careful about opening your fucking mouth. Mars is associated with knives. So, you know, maybe this will not be the time to be like, fuck my website, I'm cutting it down, or I hate these clients or whatever. Like, you know, just be like careful about that. Jupiter expands everything it touches. So there's like a combustion energy or an exciting time. I'm planning to literally turn into Schmeagle for the next 2 to 3 weeks and not leave my office and get a fuck ton done on things I bet I want to get done before the summer officially ends or unofficially ends. Mars leaves Gemini. I believe it's the 6th. I got to double check that. I might be wrong about that. It might be the 4th. It's very, very soon after Labor Day. And this Labor Day happens to be the Virgo new moon. Obviously, we enter Virgo season next week, so this Leo energy starts to slow down. But I'm a big believer in the fact that we're not on it until we actually have the feminine, masculine boom. So a lot of people focus on the sun aspect, which is the masculine. I really focus on when the moon actually enters the sign. So to me, perfect timing, Virgo new moon. That's really when people come back from Labor Day, come back from vacation mode, and although schools start the week before that, and that would make sense with Virgo season starting, but it's time to get back to work. And so this is the kind of our last pass to be creative and fun and play and really revel in this energy, because things are going to change once September hits. September is when the debates hit. September is when all the real polls and all this stuff, again, I'm not political, all this stuff, all this stuff, all the real stuff hits, the rah-rah stops and the real stuff hits. And it's going to be interesting to see what that happens. And in your life, things are going to go back to normal. But Mars in Gemini is a opportunity to clean up the fucking mess. I made a huge mess when Mars went in retrograde in Gemini. In a lot of areas of life, things in my life slowed down a lot, and I'm picking the pace back up. I got really sick right around the time that Mars went retrograde in Gemini, and I don't think I ever really recovered from that. I physically recovered, but in a lot of ways, mentally, I didn't recover. And so this is a time to clean up the mess. If there's stuff you needed to clean up from 2023, it's time to clean that up. I'm going to take my own advice and do all of that, but that's really what this time is about. So we can thrust forward on September 2nd, the Virgo new moon, with new energy. And whatever date it is that Mars leaves Gemini, it's not very much after that. It's March 4th, March 5th, and then it enters Cancer. And I got to check the dates, guys, but I think it's in Cancer to it's in Cancer to I'm just going to quickly, if I can pull up the ephemeris, I will. If not. It's early spring. I don't want to do this on that because you guys, I'm not going to edit this. So then this is just me a gap, and I don't want to do this to you guys. Let me keep talking. Let me keep dancing. And so this is the Virgo in me. It leaves Cancer for good. Oh my freaking Lord. April 19th, you guys. So if you're like me wearing a t-shirt and flip-flops and shorts right around the time that you're thinking about bringing them back out again, if you live in a place with 4 seasons, that is how long Mars is going to be in Cancer after it leaves Gemini early September. You heard it here. I'm born with Mars in Cancer, so I love that. But Cancer is the quote fall. That's all just patriarchy. And I hope, by the way, with this I hope we're changing astrology, dude. I hope we're changing. I know a lot of people are redoing tarot cards and stuff to make them less religious. A lot of astrology is patriarchy. But because Mars is taking action and Cancer is intuition. And so in Mars and Cancer, you're going to be doing it differently. And so I know how to do that well because I'm born with Mars in Cancer. It is my ruling planet. I'm Scorpio rising, which should not surprise you as an astrologer. And I have Uranus on my ascendant. That should not surprise you either. But that's a big part of my new business. And that is a big part of why the Aligned Alchemist is, because if you're a sacral being, your Mars is your life force is your thing. And human design is all about doing business and life in line with your intuition and your higher knowing versus what everybody tells you to do. If that speaks to you, the Aligned Alchemist podcast is live. We'll be fully 100% going weekly, starting in early September, but it's up there. Eventually we'll be on the YouTube channel, or at very least clips will be on my Success and Spirit YouTube channel. And I welcome you that speaks to you. If you listen to this whole episode, thank you. If you are listening to it on Spotify, leave a review, or Apple helps and lets me know that I should keep it on that player. And if you're on YouTube, welcome. My episodes are generally much more less stream of consciousness than this, but this was a backwards to go forwards. I hope you've caught you up. I hope you're interested in continuing with me, and subscribe, comment. That is the only fucking way people see this shit. I'm not even going to play around. That is how I know this is worth continuing to do, and you enjoy this from me. Enjoy your next 3 months. You will hear from me again, unless something crazy happens, when Saturn goes direct on November 15th. Be well.